Firstly, what is it within our brains that makes us do this?
Panic buying comes from a place of anxiety, so it's anxiety driven. So it helps us feel in control of an unpredictable situation. So once we hear on the news that potentially there's a shortage of fuel, for example, that is an uncontrollable situation for us. So in order to feel more in control, we panic buy and we go out and we try and get as much of what we need as possible. And it's a way of managing our emotional state at this time when you're feeling a little bit anxious about the situation. And it almost works as a therapy. So everyone's heard of retail therapy, and panic buying works in the same way.
Interesting stuff. I mean, look, people are... Do you think the news is making it worse, though, isn't it? I mean, the papers saying, oh, my God, we're running on empty and stuff like that. Even for somebody who's quite calm with me with a full tank, looked at my tank and thought, maybe I should refill at the pump. Then I thought, I'm not joining that queue. Are we not creating the situation ultimately ourselves, though?
Exactly that. And that's another problem. It comes down to conformity. So it's human nature for us to look towards others for guidance, particularly in potentially stressful situations. So we'll look to others in times of uncertainty, in times of stress. And so if others are stockpiling or panic buying or queuing up at the petrol station, we feel like we need to do the same because we might think that other consumers have information that we don't have. So it really comes down to conformity, and then it just becomes a ripple effect that everybody conforms, everybody ends up queuing at the petrol stations.
What about the urge? Because I have this urge to not do what other people are doing. Surely that would sort of slightly overtake a few people, or it doesn't seem to be working. I mean, for me, if I see a load of people doing something, I think I'm going to try and do the opposite. Surely there is that as well.
Yeah, that does come down to it because everybody's minds work in different ways. But also another point that comes down to it is that people go through irrational fears of the worst consequences. So they imagine the worst. And again, in times like this, in times of uncertainty, where it's potentially been in the headlines that there's a shortage of fuel, we then have what's called cognitive distortions, and this is just irrational thoughts that influence our emotion, so potentially heighten our anxiety and then influence our behaviour, so leads us to go and panic buy. And it's things like jumping to conclusions and catastrophizing situations that we think we will never be able to fill our car up with fuel ever again, and we really do jump to the worst possible conclusion. So it's really important to challenge those thoughts and beliefs. Some people do that very easily, but some people, they need to reflect on it and actually, take the time to challenge these thoughts and beliefs and ask themselves, is this factual, and do I have factual evidence for this, or is it quite an irrational thought that I'm having? And some people can do that much easier than others.